Hi there, we are back on the 67 Hail Hail channel on YouTube. As you should know by now, I am Hamish Carton. Celtic's incredible cup run of 35 consecutive victories and numerous trophies is over. This afternoon we lost 2-0 at home to Ross County. Barack Obama was the American president when we last lost a cup game, John McGinley. As one American presidency seems to be coming to an end in the coming months, has the Celtic manager's job going to be changing hands as well? Was that a fatal blow this afternoon, in your opinion?
If it's not, it should be. And I think we're getting to the stage now where this might not be about Lennon, it might be about the men above him who are refusing to take a decision here. What we've heard all week is that Peter Lawwell and Dermot Desmond back Neil Lennon heavily. They've had long chats and Zoom calls, much like we're doing now, probably. Discussing him, discussing the club, discussing what's going wrong, and yet they continue to back him. Whereas I would suggest that the vast majority of Celtic fans, including all of us who appreciate what Neil Lennon has done at Celtic over the last 20 years, the way he came back after Brendan Rodgers left the club will always be legendary to me. The way he played for the club and captained the club and became an icon of the club will always be legendary to me. His multiple trophy wins as a player and as a manager will forever be enshrined in Celtic history. But this Celtic team are going nowhere, absolutely nowhere. They've hit a brick wall, and that's on Lennon, but it's also now on the men who will not take action if this continues. They need to take action now. It's gotten past the point where it's just a talking point. This is urgent for me now. I think, to me, from the looks of it today, and this is not, I'm not, absolving the players of any blame here, but they've chucked it. And today I thought the players was a disgrace. I thought, the management was poor again. This is just going nowhere fast, and something needs to happen urgently.
Yeah, we've been doing these videos so often over the last week period, but today felt like a lower point than any of the previous ones. This is, people forget, the best squad in the country for me. I know I take pelters on this channel regularly, but player for player, it is still the best squad in the country, and they couldn't even score a goal against Ross County, a team who I think have won one league match since August. They are one of the poorer teams in the Scottish Premiership, and I know today was a cup game, but imagine that had been a league game. Today would be eyeing up, falling further behind in the title race. And the title race, which is already really, on the edge of a cliff, would be right off that cliff, because this is a team, as you say, that's going nowhere. There was a feeling among some supporters that we would breeze through this wee chunk of 5 or 6 games just because the opposition were terrible, and then we'd go to Ibrox, get turned over, and then Lennon would probably go. I didn't subscribe to that, quite simply, and this is not me acting, in hindsight and all that kind of thing, but I just see a team there that isn't playing for the manager. I know when I see a team that have chucked it, as you put it, and today was more evidence. And quite simply, if Neil Lennon is in charge for our next domestic game, never mind Thursday night, because that's just irrelevant, we're going to drop more points. We're going to drop more points because we'll play better opposition than Ross County between now and the end of the year, and we're going to be 20 further points behind Rangers by the time we even play them, never mind after Ibrox. Something has to change. We've been saying it so often this season. I've been saying it after every single one of these matches, these videos that I'm on, for probably the last dozen matches or so. And it has to happen now, John. It just has to happen.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Ross County aren't a team in form. They're bottom 6 in the Scottish Premiership. Stuart Kettlewell's under pressure himself. Sparta Prague, another team not in form. Their manager was facing the sack if we'd beaten them on Thursday night. They're under pressure too. So Lennon's now going to go up against 2 managers with what I would perceive to be lower quality squads with far less of a budget than we have, and failed in both instances. And this is a ridiculous state of affairs, and it was almost farcical when Ross County scored the first goal today or won the penalty. I was not surprised, disappointed but not surprised. That's me with Celtic at the moment. Nothing is really surprising me at the moment. We're hitting new lows here, and people talk about compare this team to Dyla or Mowbray or Strachan's final season, but this is pretty grim now for me. This has gone beyond anything reasonable and anything we should expect, and it's not hysteria, and it's not fans being spoiled, it's not fans being entitled. We want to see a successful Celtic team on the pitch. If we are playing well and we're just missing out on victories and results, then that's one thing. But this isn't acceptable, the way the team are playing.
it kind of encapsulated our whole season. In the afternoon today, we had the customary penalty that we seem to give away in virtually every game now, the daft penalty. Think back to Encham Pataudry. Similar today with Julian, I think, who fouls the boy. You had the set piece goal that we give away, which seems to happen virtually every game at the moment. You had the 3-5-2 got a showing. You had the 4-2-3-1 got a showing. You had two strikers playing. You had one striker playing. You had, Shane Duffy coming on strangely for the last 10 minutes. It just encapsulated absolutely everything that's gone wrong about our season. And I will reiterate it. Edouard started today. Ajeti, a £5 million player, started. Tom Rogic started today, a brilliant player. Ryan Christie started today. We had McGregor coming off the bench. We had Laxalt playing, who's a Uruguay international, and we couldn't get a goal past Ross County. You almost feel as if, as I've said for ages now, you are banging your head against a wall. I've asked you this before. Try and give me some sort of reason for keeping Neil Lennon on right now. I know you don't necessarily want to, but what would the board, if they're looking for any excuse to keep him in? Is there any excuse now?
Well, the only excuse that you could ever come up with would be, do things get worse if you change the manager? And I don't possibly see how it can get worse.
How can it get worse?
Yeah, how can it get worse? So for me, there's not much risk other than the perception of letting go of a club legend. But for me, I think people want, people to step in for Neil Lennon now. I'm getting to the stage where I'm almost feeling sorry for Neil Lennon because he's in that dugout, and people should be stepping in here and putting this, taking leadership here, and that falls on the chief executive Peter Lawwell, and it falls on the larger shareholder Dermot Desmond, who seem to be the decision makers at the club. They've got to step in here and say, Lennon, we love you, but this can't go on, and we need to make a change. We need to be seen to make a change. We can't go down without a chase this season. We've got to at least try and put up a fight or do everything possible to try and rein in Rangers, because the reason other fans of other clubs and the reason Rangers fans gets annoyed when we say we've got a better squad is because man for man, I do believe we do, but as a team, Rangers are a better team than us right now, and if you haven't cottoned on to that by now, then there might not be any hope for you, because that's the truth. Rangers are a better team than Celtic right now. It's just a cold hard fact. And it's the fact that the people in charge have let it get to this stage. That's who you should be directing your anger at that, for me saying that. Don't shoot the messenger. They've allowed this to happen, and we need to make a change to try and get back towards where we should be, as a squad and as a team and as a club and as for me the biggest and best club in the country.
Do you think the Celtic support should now turn that anger, that frustration to those in power rather than Neil Lennon? Are we more likely to see action if we do that?
Well, perhaps, but this is the point for me. It's just like, Lennon could resign and walk away, and people would ask him to do that. I don't really subscribe to that. He's a man in a job like everyone else. It doesn't really work like that. He might have the courage or convictions, but he might not be able to see what everyone else is seeing right now because he's in the thick of it. He might not be able to see what's going wrong. He might not be able to see that he's not getting through to his players. And the players could be kind of leading him down a garden path as well, in terms of telling him all the right things to his face. But you see it on the pitch today. They are not playing for him. It's just so obvious. So someone needs to step in on Lennon's behalf here. And if that means people need to put pressure on Peter Lawwell and Dermot Desmond, well, so be it. They're not taking questions at the AGM, so make your voices loud, I would suggest.
Sorry, I just lost my wee thing for a sec there. Yeah, it's just another real disappointing afternoon. But as I said earlier, this is a low point from my point of view. I've seen loads of stuff on social media about fans wanting to go down to Celtic Park, and a lot of people saying that that's not what's needed at the moment, and it'll make little difference. I don't know if this is a controversial or the kind of thing I should be saying, at times like this. But if Celtic fans want to, act in a safe way, and make their voices heard, I personally think they should be entitled to do that, because we're not being listened to at all. The board are acting as if we're idiots and Neil Lennon is going to turn this around, and they probably think we had this really forgiving run of fixtures where he could get a bit of momentum. I don't know what they were expecting to happen at Ibrox, because I know what everyone else, but But I wonder if even Peter Lawwell and Dermot Desmond will have been shocked, surprised by what happened today, because we can't reiterate it enough. That's Ross County. We're playing at home today. That is one of the poorest teams we would face all season in the Premiership. And fair play to Ross County, they deserved a win today, but they won 2-0. That was, you mentioned Tony Mowbray, you mentioned Dyla, which is an unfair comparison. That was worse than anything either of those two offered up. Probably with the exception of the St Mirren game under Mowbray, that was the only one that would be worse. But that was a real low point today. And if it doesn't change here, if Neil Lennon is still in charge for, and let me remind you, the San Siro on Thursday night to play the team that I think are top of the Italian league, I just don't know where we go from there. If he's still in charge, then the league's over for me. Because if he's still in charge on Thursday, then what does it take for him to be sacked at any point this season?
Yeah, you're right. You're spot on. And you know what? These group of players, they might go to Italy on Thursday and play with the pressure off and put in some sort of performance as they did against Lille. But that, to me, sums up the mentality and what's going wrong with this team at the moment. They're not focused on what they need to do, and they're playing for their futures now as well. I'm not happy with any player in that squad right now. I've not seen anything from anybody that fills me with any sort of confidence. So they've got it all to prove too. And I'll tell you what, if we do change the manager and this group of players don't get their act together, it'll be them who carries the can. And in terms of their legacies at Celtic, it won't be Neil Lennon. It will be the players.
But I think if you bring in a new manager, you get a reaction from the players. I agree with you totally. The players can't get off scot-free at all, because I thought they were a disgrace today. I thought you could go throughout the team. You had the usual players that were trying. Ryan Christie was trying. Ayer was trying, but Ayer was bloody hopeless. But there was so many players today that, and I hate saying this on a forum like this, but I thought there was players there today who were, I don't want to say trying to get Neil Lennon the sack, but they certainly weren't trying to win that game today. And I know that'll be massively controversial, and people may disagree with that and say players will always try. But there was players out there today not giving a toss. And that's unforgivable, but equally that shows how far we have fallen, that players, in my opinion, don't care enough to play for Celtic under Neil Lennon. And I think if you get Neil Lennon out and you get a new manager in, you immediately get a boost. It just has to happen, and I can't emphasise that enough. Everyone knows it has to happen. After the Rangers game, it was maybe 60-40 in favour of Lennon being sacked. I think I said that at the time. Maybe after the Sparta Prague first debacle, it went to 70-30. Maybe after Thursday, it was 90-10. Surely now it's an absolute landslide, of people say Neil Lennon has to go. There is no way you come back from that today.
Yeah, and you know what? Changing the manager, I've said it umpteen times, it doesn't mean we're giving in. It actually is the opposite. It means that we're up for the fight. Changing the manager is a positive step towards getting back Celtic to where we want them to be. It's not about giving in and throwing in the towel. That's not what this is about, and it's also not about any personal feelings for Neil Lennon. I know there is a lot of over the top, I would suggest, remarks going around about Lennon, and I don't think we've stooped to that level. But I think that his time is up, and we just need to recognise that and let him leave the club and let him take time out. And in future years, he will be remembered fondly. But this is just a disaster at the moment, and it's a disaster that we can't afford to continue.
Let's move the conversation on a little bit then, and I'll have a conversation with you that we've not yet had on this channel anyway. If Neil Lennon if Celtic do relieve Neil Lennon of his duties today or tomorrow, which I honestly do think will happen now, and I know you agree, who do you think, you don't need to give me names, but what kind of manager do you think Celtic go out and get? Do you think, as has been reported in the media, we end up with a former manager back in charge of the club, a kind of caretaker to the end of the season, or do you think they will be ambitious again and try and get a manager in to take us forward, a la Brendan Rodgers 4 years ago? I know maybe not of that calibre, but that kind of idea.
Yeah, we need a manager of that calibre, though. We need someone to bring Premier League standards back to Celtic. That's where we want to be. We need someone with knowledge of the European game. We need someone who's of a standard that we don't have currently. And it's not my job to source a manager, so it's really difficult for me to figure out. I don't have the contacts that the club do or Peter Lawwell does, but if we're looking in the very short term, it would likely be John Kennedy on a caretaker basis for the next few matches, while Celtic do some sort of due diligence on the next candidate. They didn't do that due diligence when they appointed Lennon permanently, and that's why we're in the position we're in now. It wasn't an anti-Lennon thing when he got appointed after the Scottish Cup final. It was the fact that Peter Lawwell basically admitted that they didn't do their due diligence on sourcing the best possible candidate for the job, and basically just gave it to Lennon. So that's what needs to happen now, and however long that takes, look, I'm not going to lie to you, this isn't going to be easier. Nothing's going to be fixed overnight if we change the manager. But we'll at least have some sort of tangible hope and reasonable expectation that things can get better. And that's enough for me right now, considering the situation we're in. So we need a Premier League standard manager, I would suggest, and the club need to pay that. And I think we've got the budget for the manager to do that. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, Hamish.
I suppose we've got a Scottish Cup final coming up that, for me looking in, would be an ideal opportunity for a new manager to show a mainly new team, or certainly a few new players, what it's like to win a trophy for Celtic. I think that can't be underestimated. Another thing that I want to mention in this stream that will probably seem quite out of place, given how massively negative and toxic a day this has been for Celtic, because for me this is pretty bad in terms of the way things are going, and how today's shaped up amongst everything else. But I think at the end of the run that has been ended today, I think we have to look back on this cup run that ended today as an amazing time to be a Celtic supporter. 35 consecutive cup wins all the way back, and I joked right at the start of this stream with a terribly lengthy intro about the fact that Donald Trump wasn't even in power, but that does just show how long it's been. It was April 2016 the last time we lost a domestic cup game before today, and I just want to say thanks to all the players and the manager/managers who have helped us with the majority of that run. It's been an amazing time to support Celtic in the cups. To be honest, I was getting a bit tired of winning the Betfred Cup, so I'm kind of glad we're out today. But it's been an amazing time, and it's sad it's over today, John, and obviously there's a whole lot of other stuff going on that we've already spoken about in this video. But just briefly from you, an incredible cup run that we'll probably never see again.
No, we will never see it again. Certainly, I don't think we will. And I don't think we'll see a season like the Invincible season again, which was just the most extraordinary season I've ever seen in my lifetime supporting Celtic, and I'll never forget those memories. It's not about even getting back to that standard. That's not what we're moaning about here. It's just about the standard we need. And the players in this team, some of them are legends, some of them are icons, and that will be borne out in the future. And even 9 in a row, a magnificent achievement. It's not taking anything away from these players to say we want better. And we've been so grateful to be able to talk about Celtic for these years of this period of success and be around to see it happen. And the fans shouldn't forget that, and the fans should recall fondly the days that have gone by over the last 4 years, and hopefully we can move on to a new project now and kind of look forward optimistically. I hate being negative about Celtic. I honestly hate it. Take no joy from it whatsoever. It would bring me so much pleasure to be able to talk positively and hopefully about Celtic again. So let's hope that we can do that.
That's the final point I want to make on the game today, the second half. The biggest frustration, or the biggest sign that where I am with Celtic at the moment, is that I wasn't invested in that second half. I was on my phone, I was on WhatsApp, I was on social media, I was on the forums. I wasn't invested in that, and we were chasing a lead in a cup tie. That's how Celtic have fallen for me, but it's retrievable. Things are retrievable. We're out of the cup, but the league is still retrievable if they make the decision now, tonight or tomorrow, and they get in a good manager. It's retrievable, and we can look back at this as being a potential turning point. It's sore at the moment, but we've done another video. I've not even mentioned our wonderful fans yet. It's been going absolutely nuts. The comments are just streaming down. I think there's just shy of 500 people in the stream at the moment, so it's flying. We really appreciate everyone who watches us live, everyone who watches it on demand afterwards as well. If you're a Celtic fan and you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please give that a go. And yeah, John, I think we're back tomorrow with Jackie McNamara, so that could be interesting.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what Jackie says. I thought his comments last week were good and respectful of Neil Lennon, but at the same time, I don't think he shied away from, the harsh realities that are facing this team at the moment. So I'll be very interested to see what Jackie has to say tomorrow.
Definitely. John, thanks for your time.
Cheers.
Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll speak to you soon.